I should never have gone to the river that day. But the forest has a way of calling you when you least expect it. My name is Elara. I am 24 years old, and I have been living alone since my grandmother passed away almost 2 winters ago. The cabin she left me sits right on the edge between the village and the forbidden forest. It is a simple place. Stone walls covered in moss, a dark wooden roof that creaks when the wind blows hard. I have fair skin, sun-kissed across my cheekbones from years of gathering herbs under open skies. My brown hair, always a little wild, stays tied in a thick braid my grandmother taught me to weave. The moss-green cloak she left behind still smells of dried herbs and memory. And around my neck, hanging from a leather cord, there is a moonstone amulet that I never take off. In the village, they call me the healer. Some say it with respect. Others say it with a certain unease in their eyes. I prepare teas, poultices, tinctures made from roots I gather at the edge of the woods. But I never, ever go deep into the forest. My grandmother made me promise that. She used to say the heart of the woods belonged to others. That there was an ancient pact between humans and wolves, and that this pact kept everything in balance. I believed her. I believed her in a quiet way, without questioning. Until autumn arrived early that year, bringing with it a drought that withered the herbs along the forest edge. My supplies were running low. Old Marin, who lived on the other side of the village, had been feverish for days. I needed moonroot, and moonroot only grows near water, near the forbidden river. I told myself I would be quick, that I would go in, gather what I needed, and leave before anything noticed me. I grabbed my leather satchel, tucked my harvesting knife into my belt, and set out before dawn. The mist crawled between the tree trunks as if the forest itself were breathing. Pine trees rose impossibly tall, draped in lichen, and light barely managed to filter through the canopy. Every step I took crackled over dry leaves, and I was certain the whole world could hear me. I followed the sound of water. The deeper I went, the older the trees became. Their bark was dark, almost black, twisted with age and covered in pale fungus that glowed faintly in the dim light. The river appeared between them like a silver ribbon cutting through the gloom. The banks were covered in smooth stones and damp moss, and the water ran so clear I could see every pebble on the bottom.
Finally.
And it was there, kneeling to collect the roots, that I heard it. It was not just any animal. It was something large moving through the water. I raised my eyes slowly, my heart already racing, and I saw him. A man. Or what appeared to be a man. He was standing in the middle of the river, water reaching his waist. He looked about 30, maybe older. His shoulders were broad, his body marked by scars that crossed his back and chest, like maps of ancient battles. His hair was white as fresh snow, falling wet to his shoulders. His skin had a pale, almost lunar tone that did not seem entirely human. But it was the eyes that held me in place. Amber. 2 circles of liquid gold that turned in my direction before I could even think of hiding. My entire body froze. Not from cold, from something deeper. An ancestral instinct screaming at me to run and at the same time keeping me from moving a single muscle. He looked at me without surprise, without anger, with a calm that was almost worse, as if he had already known I would come. Then it happened. His form shifted. It was not violent, not grotesque. It was like watching mist reshape itself. His shoulders widened, his arms touched the water and became enormous paws. His face elongated, his eyes remained the same. And suddenly, standing before me, there was no longer a man. There was a wolf. The largest white wolf I could ever imagine. Thick fur like winter snow, gleaming under the faint light filtering through the trees. A massive body with scars visible even beneath the coat. And those amber eyes, fixed on me, burning with an intelligence no ordinary animal could possess. I stumbled backward. My hands were shaking. The amulet on my chest pulsed warm against my skin, and that was what made him stop. He lowered his head, eyes locked on the moonstone. A deep sound rose from his chest, not a growl, more like a recognition, an ancient lament. Then he retreated to the opposite bank and vanished into the forest shadows as if he had never been there at all. I ran. I ran like I had not run since I was a child. Branches scratched my face. Roots tried to trip me, but I did not stop until I was back inside my cabin, locked, breathless, my heart hammering against my ribs. I stayed awake the entire night, sitting by the fireplace, clutching the amulet, trying to convince myself it had been a dream, a hallucination caused by fear. But the moon root in my satchel proved otherwise. And the lingering warmth of the amulet against my skin was too real to ignore. The next morning, I went to Marin's house to deliver the herbs. Marin was a woman of about 70, her face wrinkled like oak bark, white hair pinned in a loose bun. She wore a wool shawl over a simple linen dress, and a necklace of bones and dried herbs hung from her neck. She was the oldest person in the village, and the only one who still spoke about the forest without fear in her eyes. When she saw me, she frowned. She said I looked like I had seen a ghost. I almost told her everything. Almost. But something held me back. A caution that maybe I inherited from my grandmother. I brewed Marin's tea, applied the poultice for her fever, and went home in silence. But that night, when I opened the door to toss out the used water, I found something on the step. A smooth river stone, perfectly round, placed there with intention. And around it, wolf prints in the damp earth. He knew where I lived. In the days that followed, I began to notice things. A distant howl at dusk, always at the same hour. Paw prints near my garden fence, always in the morning. And once, at dawn, I saw a white shape moving between the trees at the edge of the forest, standing still, watching, not coming closer, but not leaving either. I should have been afraid, and part of me was. But there was another part, a part I did not recognize, that felt something different. Curiosity, and a connection I could not explain. As if the amulet on my chest were vibrating at a frequency only that Wolf could hear. It was Marin who finally gave me answers. Her fever broke within a week, and when I visited her, she grabbed my wrist with a strength that did not match her age. She looked into my eyes and said she knew what I had seen, that my grandmother had seen the same thing decades ago, and that the amulet I carried was not just an heirloom, it was a key, the mark of a lineage of guardians, women who served as mediators between the human world and the wolves. The Alpha King, she said. That was what they called him in the old stories. The white wolf who guards the heart of the forest since before the village was founded. He does not age the way we do. He and his pack keep the forest alive, the rivers clean, the soil fertile. And in return, the guardians kept the humans away. They protected the pact. They made sure no one invaded the sacred territory. My grandmother was the last guardian, and with her death, the pact lost its human voice. The wolves were restless, and the hunters from the village, led by a man named Aldrich, were growing bold. Aldrich, I knew him by sight. A man in his early 40s, tall, muscular, with a dark beard and heavy hands. He wore a hardened leather coat and carried a bow that looked more like a weapon of war. He had lost his father to the wolves when he was young, or at least that was the story he told. Since then, he lived convinced that the wolves were a threat that needed to be wiped out. And now, with the guardian dead, he was gathering men for a hunt. Marin begged me to take my grandmother's place. I said no. I said it was absurd. That I was a healer, not a warrior, not a mystic. That I did not know the first thing about ancient packs and wolves that turn into men. I left her house with anger, confusion, and a fear I could not name. But that night, the howls changed. They were no longer distant and lonely. They were urgent, desperate. And when I opened the cabin door, the air smelled of blood. I ran. This time, Not away from the forest, but toward it. I did not think. My body moved before my mind, as if my feet knew the path on their own. The full moon lit the trail, and the tree shadows stretched like long fingers across the ground. And it was in the clearing, that same clearing my grandmother used to describe in her bedtime stories, that I found them. The moonlight poured into the open space like spilled milk, illuminating every blade of frost-covered grass. Ancient stones stood at the edges, half buried, half forgotten, their surfaces carved with symbols I almost recognized. A she-wolf. Smaller than the alpha, but still striking. White fur with gray patches on her ears and muzzle. She lay on her side, breathing fast and shallow. A steel trap bit into her hind leg. Blood stained the fresh snow around her, dark and thick. And beside her, standing with fur bristled and teeth bared, was him, the alpha, looking at me as if to say, "You took your time." I knelt beside the she-wolf. My hands were trembling, but I was a healer. This I knew how to do. I examined the trap, found the mechanism, and with my harvesting knife, forced it open. The she-wolf whimpered as her paw came free, and I immediately began cleaning the wound with the herbs I always carried in my satchel. The alpha did not move. He stood there, watching, and somehow his presence was comforting, like a mountain standing between me and any danger. As I worked, the she-wolf watched me, gray eyes, soft, filled with a gratitude that went beyond the barrier between species. When I finished wrapping the paw with strips torn from my own cloak, she pressed her muzzle into my hand, and I felt it, not with my ears, but with something deeper, a presence in my mind, gentle, careful, like a hand touching the surface of water. The she-wolf was communicating with me. Her name, if I can call it that, was like a feeling, the sensation of moonlight on snow. She was the pack's guide, the emotional anchor, the one who kept the others centered when the alpha needed to be strong. And she was showing me, in images and sensations, what I needed to see. The forest was dying, not from the outside in, but from the heart outward. The ancient runes carved into stones scattered throughout the woods were fading. The pact weakened with each passing day, without a human guardian to renew the vows. And without the pact, the forest would lose its magic. The rivers would dry. The soil would turn barren. The wolves would lose the ability to protect what was sacred, and the hunters were coming. I returned home that night a different person. I do not know exactly how to explain it. It was as if someone had lit a candle inside me, in a room I did not even know existed. The fear was still there, but beside it there was something else. Purpose. For the first time since my grandmother died, I knew what I was supposed to do, even without knowing how. In the days that followed, I began to learn. The she-wolf, whom I started calling Luna in the silence of my thoughts, met me every night at the forest edge. She guided me along the ancient trails, showed me the runic stones, taught me to feel the pulse of the forest beneath my feet. The alpha followed at a distance, always vigilant, a white shadow moving through the trees. And slowly, I began to understand the amulet. It was not just a symbol, it was a channel. When I held it near the runes, I could feel the forest's energy flowing through me like running water. The stones glowed again, faintly, but they glowed. And the forest seemed to breathe deeper, like someone finally finding relief after a long pain. But the village was changing too. Aldrich had gathered a group of 15 men, all armed, all convinced that the wolves were the cause of the poor harvests, the long winters, the drought that killed their livestock. He gave speeches in the square, pointed at the forest, and said it was time to end that threat once and for all. And people listened. Fear is a powerful poison. It spreads fast and consumes reason before anyone realizes. That was when Tomas came to find me. Tomas was a man of about 30, a villager, a carpenter with calloused hands and a shy smile. He had dark hair cut short, brown eyes, and always wore the same worn cotton shirt under a wool vest. He was the kind of person who fixes a neighbor's fence without being asked. Compassionate, rational, and conflicted, because Aldrich was his older brother. Thomas told me the hunt was set for the new moon, 5 days. He said he had tried to convince Aldrich, but it was like talking to a stone wall, and he asked me if it was true, if the wolves were really what the old stories said, if the forest was truly sacred. I looked into his eyes and told him the truth. All of it. The transformation, the pact, the runes. The fact that if Aldrich killed the Alpha, the forest would collapse and the village would die with it. Thomas was silent for a long time. Then he nodded, said he would help me, and walked off into the night without looking back. The 5 days passed far too quickly. I worked through the nights, renewing the runes, feeling the forest's energy grow little by little. The amulet pulsed stronger and stronger against my chest. Luna accompanied me, patient, correcting me when I channeled too much energy, encouraging me when I wanted to give up. The Alpha appeared and disappeared like a vision. Sometimes, when I was exhausted, he would lie near me in the clearing, and his warmth was like a silent bonfire. I would rest my hand on his thick fur and feel, beneath the wolf's body, a heart that beat with the strength of centuries. One night, he shifted before me. Not fully, but enough for me to see his human face in the moonlight. Those amber eyes, now in a face that carried the marks of countless seasons. He did not speak. He did not need to. The forest spoke for him. And what it said was simple. I trust you. On the night of the new moon, Aldrich came. The hunters entered the forest with torches and weapons. Fire licked the darkness, turning shadows into dancing monsters. I heard them before I saw them. The sound of branches breaking, deep voices, the smell of oil and iron. My heart raced, but my feet were planted in the main clearing, where the largest runic stone rose like a moss-covered altar. Luna stood at my side, the Alpha, in front of me. Other wolves, 6 or 7, formed a protective semicircle behind us. White and gray fur gleaming in the dim light, eyes reflecting the distant glow of the torches. None of them growled. None bared their teeth. They waited. Aldrich was the first to step into the clearing. When he saw me, his face twisted with fury and confusion. He shouted my name, asked what I was doing, called me a traitor, said I was as mad as my grandmother. The other hunters spread out behind him, nervous, weapons ready. I told him to stop. My voice did not shake, and that surprised me more than anything. I told him the truth, about the pact, about the forest, about what would happen if he destroyed what was here. I said the wolves were not the enemy, that they never were, that the hunger and drought did not come from the forest, but from the absence of the pact that kept it alive. Aldrich laughed, a bitter laugh full of pain. He said I was telling the same lies his mother used to tell when he was a boy, and he raised his bow. That was when Thomas stepped out from between the trees. He carried no weapon, just his open hands and his steady voice. He placed himself between Aldrich and the Alpha. He looked his brother in the eye and said it was true, that he had seen it with his own eyes, that the forest was real, the pact was real, and that killing those wolves meant killing the village. Aldrich hesitated. For the first time that night, I saw doubt in his eyes. The fury was still there, but beneath it was something more fragile. The boy who lost his father. The man who turned pain into rage because it was easier than admitting he was afraid. And then I did something I had not planned. I placed my hand on the runic stone and called upon the forest. Not with words. With the amulet, with my blood, with the legacy of every guardian who came before me. The stone glowed, not with a blinding light, but with a soft and deep radiance, like liquid moonlight. The runes around the clearing ignited one by one, forming a circuit of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ground trembled gently. The trees seemed to lean inward, not threatening, but sheltering. And the wolves howled, all of them, together. A sound that was not aggression, it was celebration. It was the sound of the pact being renewed. The hunters fell back. Some dropped their weapons. One of them sank to his knees, eyes wide. Aldrich stood frozen, the bow trembling in his hands, staring at the light that now wrapped the clearing like an aurora rising from the earth. I turned to him. With the glow of the runes reflecting on my face, I extended my hand. Not as a threat, as an invitation. I told him I understood his pain, that losing someone to the unknown is the worst kind of loss, but that the answer was not to destroy what he could not understand. The answer was to learn to see again. Aldrich looked at my hand for a long time. The bow slipped from his fingers. He did not take my hand, but he took a step back, and then another. And without saying a word, he turned around and walked out of the forest. The hunters followed, one by one, until the clearing fell silent. Tomas stayed. He looked at me, exhausted, relieved, something between pride and wonder. Then he looked at the alpha, who approached slowly. The enormous wolf stopped before the carpenter and lowered his head in a slow bow. Tomas let out the breath he had been holding and, almost laughing, nodded as if accepting that the world was far bigger than he ever imagined. The days that followed were quiet. The rain finally came, breaking the drought like a promise fulfilled. The herbs along the edge grew back, the river swelled, and the forest, that same forest I had spent my whole life avoiding, opened itself to me like a home I never knew I had. I kept living in the cabin. I kept being the village healer. But now I was something else too. The guardian, the human voice of the pact. Every full moon, I walked to the clearing of runes, lit the ancestral stone, and renewed the vows. The ritual was quiet but powerful. I would press my palm against the cold stone, close my eyes, and let the energy of the forest flow through me until the runes glowed like embers in the dark. Luna was always there, limping slightly on the paw that never fully healed, but with those gray eyes full of tenderness. The alpha waited for me at the edge of the clearing, sometimes as a wolf, sometimes as a man, always in silence, always with those golden eyes. Between us there was a bond I cannot name. It was not romance the way people understand it. It was something older, deeper, like the roots of two trees intertwined beneath the earth, invisible but inseparable. Aldrich never returned to the forest, but he never organized another hunt either. Tomas told me his brother had started working at the mill, quietly, as if trying to rebuild something inside himself. Maybe he was. Healing is a slow process, and not all wounds close at once. Maren passed away that winter, peacefully, in her sleep, with the bone and herb necklace still around her neck. I prepared her for the funeral and cried alone in the cabin afterward, holding the amulet, feeling that one more thread connecting me to the past had been severed. But when I opened the door the next morning, there were wolf prints in the snow around the cabin, forming a complete circle, a gesture of protection, of presence, of shared grief. Sometimes, when the night is clear and the moon paints the forest in silver, I sit at the edge of the clearing and listen. The wind in the treetops, the sound of the river in the distance, the deep breathing of a wolf lying in the shadows. And I wonder if my grandmother felt this too. This feeling of belonging to something far greater than a single human life can hold. Of being at once so small and so necessary. I should never have gone to the river that day. But the forest knows what it is doing. It called me because it needed me, and I, without knowing, needed it. The pact, the wolves, the light of the ancient runes, and the honest darkness between the trees. My name is Elara. I am the guardian of the forest, and this is my story.